I'm having difficulty with this morning's podcast. I remember Al telling me that he had gone out to, he's having a good time in his apartment in LA, going out to dinner, having a social life with Adrika. This last weekend, they went up to the mountains north of Los Angeles for a hike. They were joined by three other people in the clinical trials, two ladies and another gentleman. They're all my age, so they also took a trip down to Watts to see how much memory they had of that event in the 60s. I think by now, the brain stores your sensory perceptions along with an emotional tag. So these events like Watts, and they also went over into Compton, where or where was that part of L.A. where the Rodney King incident happened. Um, And then they also have a staff. Everybody, like Al, has a companion assigned, like Adrotica, and all those records are kept along with surveillance. I'm sure they recorded all the phone conversations that Al and I had at that time. That was middle of 2019 or sometime just before COVID hit. So, and they haven't told Al about the fire at his house yet. They're putting that's going to be an emotional event, and naturally they're very cautious about how that will upset the trial, what effect it'll have uh, on the content or memory or recall. It's a shocking incident. They may even want to record his kind of accelerated brain activity. One thing about the nanobots, once they get installed, and then later on, I've got to talk about the whole nanobot technology and how that's developed from its beginnings in the semiconductor industry, where the junctions and the transistors in the early days started out as several thousand molecules wide. But as our microprocessors got faster and faster, they've shortened those distance to now where there's like 5 to 7 molecules, maybe even 2 or 3 molecules wide in those junctions. So that's the inception or birth of that nanobot technology. And then once the nanobots are installed and they have connectivity to the implanted chip, that it's implanted up by the amygdala at the base of the brain, because that's where memory events, fight or flight response begins. And from there, the flight or fight response, you have an assessment like panic attack, like everything goes haywire, or you're really cool with what's happening. And then the memory from that point gets an emotional tag and stored up around the cortex in the brain. But all this, it's all very new. So the brain mapping, now, whoever picked up the phone call in Sylmar, California, they didn't turn him over to Neuralink, because Neuralink's direction is in paraplegic. The YouTube video I watched from the project manager said they were developing something to restore the conductivity from the neck down. That she was making the comment that a lot of these people are very intelligent, but they could beat him, and they could play video games very well, but then because of that alert, acute mental activity, they can be hooked up with an output from the brain to drive the prosthetic limb. And they have already, you can find this on YouTube, that they've already hooked up a chimpanzee so that the chimpanzee, with his thoughts, can play Pong on the computer in front of them. So their emphasis is more on input-output of the motor skills in the brain, whereas whoever these people are, and it must have been the engineer found out when I was interested in memory retrieval, Alzheimer's, and dementia that he referred him to another group who must also be very wealthy, affording their own jet airplane and their own, because it's very expensive, not for the technology, for the equipment, for the personnel, for the record keeping, and then for the psychological assessment, because all of these people have to be neuropsychologists, some neurosurgeons. They have to understand the different territories in the brain, the different concentrations of neurons. Some of the areas of our brain are very intensely concentrated with neurons, others not so much. So that has a lot to do with what you would decide on the distribution of nanobots. Now I'm going to leave it at that for a moment. Thank you. Bye.